Now somebody's got something going on.
We thought it was you, Keith.
Whoever Steven is, he's doing it.
Probably I told you he was technologically
Just mute
challenged.
Steven, Keith. Mute Steven.
I'm gonna.
Mute Steven.
I just
There we
did.
go. Perfect.
Boy,
Perfect.
Aaron, let me tell you something, buddy. You can say it once, maybe twice, and then give me a second to get it done.
No.
Aaron's wearing a cowboy hat. I think he means business.
Yeah, he does. He does. He's not messing around. All right, well, let's get this going because we're recording. So, and I probably got Aaron, I probably recorded that. So I got you on recording now, Aaron.
Oh, great.
Well, thank you guys, all of you, for coming in. Really appreciate it very much. And gosh, these meetings are growing, and we're getting a bunch of great people on here. And man, just love it. It's been a really good event for us. We do them twice a month, as everybody knows. I mean, it depends on timing here, but we are recording it. So just know that you're on recording, and we send it out to all the stroke survivors out there that we have in our database. And anybody who wants to share it, please do so. We love growing this, and we like making a difference for the community out there. And I feel like that's what we're doing. So I wanted to say a quick comment before we really get going. I talked to Kim O'Kelly today, who, as you all know, broke her leg, correct, Lane?
No, her arm.
Her arm. I don't know why I get that wrong every time, but broke her arm recently. And I talked to her today. She said she's healing up. She's having some pain, which from Kim O'Kelly, it's pretty hard to hear because she's such a positive person, as you guys all know. And gosh, I just want everybody to kind of think about her a little bit. I was talking to her and I said something like, yeah, the older we get, sometimes things don't heal up quite so fast. And boy, she chewed me out. She's like, wait a second. Just because we're getting older doesn't mean we heal up any slower. So I just love her attitude, and I would appreciate if everybody kind of give her a thought on that. So I hope everybody had a good time with Jeopardy last time. That was a fun thing, and we did get it sent to us. And Tony's sitting up here too. I think Tony got a copy of it, and so we're it won't happen right away, but we're going to look at maybe getting that developed and shared in more resources or whatever. But anyway, just wanted to say that. Let's see. One thing I need to say. One thing I'd like to just say here, as we get going and as our group continues to grow, it is important that we raise our hand, or have your hand raised, or just do it this way. I don't care how you do it, but instead of interrupting, or sometimes we get a bunch of people talking at the same time, and I'd kind of like to manage that a little bit. And I'm going to try to get as many of you to be able to communicate and talk, especially with our host Pete today. So please be aware of that, and let's try not to talk over one another. And we're going to time each person basically, so we can all get a chance to talk and be in the call and be a part of the call. So with all that said, let me introduce Peter Durand. Pete is a very sharp, interesting guy. That's to say the least. He's shown a lot of success in a lot of different things that he's done. We're most excited because of his passion for the stroke warriors out there. I'll read this a little bit, as well as caregivers and therapists too. He works with the company called Saebo, Saebo, which is a company that's dedicated to developing products and services that are going to benefit the stroke survivors in the community. He hosts a couple of different podcasts. He's a very busy guy, so we really appreciate his time and energy on here today. And so, gosh, let's just give him a warm welcome and we'll get started here.
Thanks, Keith. Appreciate
Yeah.
it. So I know a couple folks on the call, Michael and Stephen. Michael introduced me to Stephen, and then Michael introduced me to you, Keith, as well. So
Yeah.
it's fun to see familiar folks on the call. Keith and I talked before the call, and I kind of gave him an idea of what I was thinking of doing, and it might be different than you'd expect. I want to kind of tee up an idea or two, and then I want to listen to all of you and learn. So real quickly, I just became CEO of Saebo about a year ago, and I did not have any prior experience in stroke or neuro. So I was new to the marketplace. I've been in healthcare for 10 or 15 years, but my knowledge of the stroke marketplace was minimal. So ask Michael. I spent a lot of time just meeting people and listening to them and learning. And I learned a lot. I learned that I think Saebo included, my company included, didn't really see a gap in the marketplace that I believe is there that we can fill. And this gap is when a stroke survivor and their caregivers leave the hospital and go home and lose their kind of tethered connection to their therapist and have to start all this on their own. It's scary. No one really knows what's going to happen. There aren't tools or processes available for it. And I learned this by talking to a lot of caregivers and survivors who said, yeah, that was a pretty tough time. And I think that we're looking at starting what we call therapy. We're just looking at starting a service to help with that. So it has nothing to do with our products. Literally, we want to develop a service or an app that would connect you to someone who could help you when you face something you haven't seen before when you're at home. And it has to kind of start when you're in the hospital or you're in therapy and moving to outpatient therapy with a therapist who kind of knows what this is all about and can show it to you as well. So we had a feeling there was something there. So rather than just guess, we took two of our sharpest employees who have a background in stroke rehab and said, go do research for 3 months. Literally, go do research. And if you come back and tell us this is stupid, we won't do it. So they went out and interviewed 3 different audiences: occupational therapists, caregivers, and stroke survivors. And the reason we separated stroke survivors and caregivers is you kind of have 2 different worlds now, right? And sometimes those worlds you don't understand each other. You have very different goals, very different frustrations. And I learned that from talking with caregivers and survivors who shared their stories with me. And I learned a ton because I'll share a couple data points that really changed my thinking about what we're doing. And I shared these stories with Keith, and I think they're important because I think they set the stage. Keith, do you agree I should share these 2 stories?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. So I was at an event, and Michael was at the same event. In fact, Michael sponsored this event. It was a stroke awareness event in the Raleigh area. It's fantastic. Michael and his team put together an incredibly good event. I was honored to be there. It was a very eye-opening event for me, and I can't wait to participate in more. And Michael, I think I've shared these 2 stories with you, but if not, they'll resonate because you were there. But I met a lot of stroke survivors and caregivers at the event, and one particular woman who's a caregiver. She's probably, I'm going to guess, 62 or 63 years old, vibrant, energetic, very beautiful. She was a beautiful woman, and she had a lot of energy. And I asked her a question. I think it kind of shocked her. I said, "How are you doing?" And it wasn't a, "Hey, how you doing?" like a greeting. She could tell I meant, "How are you doing?" And she looked at me and she said, "I'm exhausted. I'm mentally, physically, emotionally spent. I don't know how to get up in the morning anymore." And I said, "I'm so sorry to hear that." She goes, "I don't want to be my husband's therapist. I don't want to be his pill giver. Pardon my French, I don't want to be the asshole that has to remind him to do his exercises in the morning. I don't know how to respond when he's having a bad day because he has a lot of them. I'm not a psychologist or psychiatrist. I'm not a licensed therapist. I literally don't know what to do anymore. And every day we wake up with a new problem we haven't seen before." And her husband came around the corner with a walker, and he was 63. He looked 85. And he looked completely shot, done, tired, and done with it as well. Like, I don't know. I'm losing my motivation. I'm depressed. And I'm standing there looking at this going, there's so much more to stroke rehab and stroke survivors and caregivers than the physical aspect. That's very important. It's huge, but there's so much going on. So that was one story at Michael's event that rocked my world. I went back to my car and I happened to park next to another couple I'd met earlier in the day. And they're in their mid 80s, both of them, the husband and the wife in their 80s. I think Michael knows who they are. Husband's in an Amigo scooter. He's scooting around. And I talked with him earlier and he was in pretty rough shape. They happened to park right next to me and they had driven there in a Chevy Suburban. This is not a handicap van. It's a Suburban. And I opened my tailgate to put my stuff from the table we had. And she pulls up behind it and she gets a walker out of the back seat and kind of gets him out of the scooter. And he leans up against the truck on the walker. And I look at her and I go, ma'am, are you going to put that scooter in the back of that truck? She said, yes, I am. Now, that thing's 3.5 feet off the ground. And I know for a fact that scooter weighs 200 pounds. She's 85 years old. Now, I know Aaron he's got a cowboy cap on. He knows he's from this. You don't let that happen. Not on my watch. So I said, would you mind if I help you put that in the truck? And her husband, and you guys can all relate to this, looked at me and said, it would mean a lot to me if you could do that. Because he wanted to do it. He didn't want her to have to do it. It was killing him. So in 4 seconds, she broke that scooter down into 4 50-pound components. They were still each 50 pounds. Now I'm 6 feet tall. I weigh 200 pounds. I work out every day. I'm kind of a strong guy. It was still heavy for me. I had to kind of figure out how to lift it without wrecking anything and kind of barely fit it in the truck. Once I got it in the truck, I looked at her and I said, you do this every time? She goes, every time we get out of the truck and every time we get back in. I hugged her and said, oh my God, you're a superhero. And then I got in my car. I literally said to myself, there has to be a better way. Why do they not have the right equipment to get them around town? Because you guys all know, without her, they're not going anywhere, right? They're not going anywhere. Their lives have changed. It has nothing to do with the products we make at our company. It has nothing to do with that. It literally has to do with the fact that I think there's a gap in our healthcare system. When we send everybody home, we go, good luck. See ya. You're on your own. Figure out how to get them out of bed in the morning. Figure out how to get them dressed. Figure out how to get them fed. Figure out how to make sure they make all their appointments, do their exercises. Good luck. So I'm emotionally, by the way, my wife who just walked by me, she's wired to be a caregiver. I'm very lucky. I know at some point she will take good care of me. Some people are not. I'm not quite wired that way as much as I'd like to be. It doesn't come natural to me. So it could be physically. And by the way, my wife's brother had ALS. Both of her parents died of debilitating diseases, spinal diseases. So I've been around, and the only reason they could go anywhere is sometimes I could physically pick them up and take them. Otherwise, they couldn't get around. So my team went out and talked to therapists, caregivers, and survivors, and we did a bunch of surveys. And we asked a bunch of questions. And people like you got back to us and said, this is what we think is important that would help us. This is what we don't think is important. And anybody that filled out the survey, we got on a call like this and did a focus group. And then we asked them more questions and said, could you expand on that? Right, Randy, tell me what you meant by that. Or Diane, is that important to you or not? And they gave us some really good ideas, and they told us some things that would work and not work. And so therapists, now we're interviewing caregivers, and a lot of you can relate to that on this phone call, right? And asking them what they need the most. And now we're also starting in October, focus groups with stroke survivors. Like, what do you need the most? What don't you want more of? And we want to build an app that, let's say Michael's having a tough day, right? And his wife doesn't know how to handle it. He woke up with a new pain or a spasm or something that he hadn't experienced before. And he was frustrated. I want to have an app that she can literally press a button, one button, and have a licensed therapist on the phone and say, here's what we're experiencing, and have him go, you know what? I've met Michael before. Put him on the phone. Let's talk to him. Okay, based on what you just told me, try these 3 things, and let's get on the phone for 15 minutes tomorrow and see if we solved it. If not, I know a really good therapist in the area that can swing by your house and see what's going on. In 30 seconds, that happens. Or if you said, I got to get Michael to the doctor tomorrow, but guess what? I have to be out of town at my sister's wedding. Well, no problem. We'll go to Uber and they have a wave service that will pick you up in a licensed wheelchair truck and take you to the doctor for you and get you back home all on your own. One button, press it, take care of it. And as we were talking to the therapist on the call, one of them held up their phone and said, I have 4 text messages on my phone as a therapist from caregivers and survivors that need help. And I don't have time during the day to do it with my current job. One of them simply said, what's the best toilet seat for my husband? Now, for me to answer that, I'd have to go do some Google research, find a bunch of toilet seats, send them links so they could look at them and compare the prices and buy them. And I just don't have the time. I want to help, but I'm not set up to do that. Mm-hmm. So our app would allow a therapist to say, I'm available right now for the next hour and a half. Any calls that come in, I can take them. Or here's my schedule tomorrow. So when Aaron looks at the app, he goes, oh, John's available right now. I can talk to him or Steven, but I can't talk. So I'll schedule an appointment tomorrow for 15 minutes. We handle all of that for everybody. Only when everybody's available and not available, it just kind of works out. By the way, there's a whole bunch of other services that we want to figure out how to put in there. If you want to know the best tool to work on spasticity, you should be able to go ask that in our service and have your peers, not us, rate them. Not us. They literally say, here's the best tool for spasticity. Here's the best tool for shoulder subluxation. Here's the best tool for foot drop, and have your own peers rate them for you with links on how to buy them right there in the site.
Great idea.
Those are the things we're thinking of. I'm going to stop talking right now. And I'd love to listen to any of you that want to share thoughts, ideas. If you think that could be improved, or maybe some things we haven't thought of, please share it.
Okay, so Steven, you had your hand up first, buddy. You have to unmute.
There he is.
Whoop.
You're muted.
Still on mute,
Still
bud.
muted.
By the way, Steven's the second best looking ball guy in this call. Still on mute, Steven.
Can't hear you, buddy.
On the bottom, you'll see you should see a microphone. If you press it, that'll take you off of mute on the bottom left side of your screen.
There you go.
Hey,
Well, now,
we got
hey,
you.
I made it. I'm no longer a ghost. So the one thing I like introduced Mike to, Pete, I sent you a video. I done to Mike's arm, and
Yep.
2 minutes. I don't know if you watched it or not, but the biggest thing that I see as a tech, I'm like you. I genuinely care. Me
Mhm.
being, I didn't have a stroke, but I've been through a heck of a lot of treatment with cancer. And just like with cancer, after getting treatment and trying to get back into the real world, there's a huge hole. The thing that I've recognized the most with strokes and where the gap is a stroke is in somebody's head, but all they do, a lot of people, the only thing they do is treat the symptoms. They don't involve the person's brain, which is where the stroke's at. They work on their arm, they work on their leg, but they don't ever tune their brain into actually making the connection back to their leg and arm. So it gets a minimal function. And then they do stuff to just make it passive or to make it where it's not spastic, like draw it up, or they don't really increase the function in it because they never address the part of the brain to where it actually is. And I feel like that's a big gap. Is people just we work on range of motion. Well, if your brain's not backing it up, what good is the range of motion if you can't work it?
Yeah.
So it makes you more functional.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Does that make sense?
it does.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Adam, go ahead. Adam's got his hand raised.
Yeah, hi, thanks. From what I've heard, it sounds like a very carefully thought out, great idea. It sounds like a almost like a stroke concierge.
Correct. By the way, I haven't thought about that, but I like that name.
All right, I'll take credit.
You can, absolutely.
So Aaron had his hand up as well.
How you doing, Steve? My name is Aaron Abla. I'm CEO and founder of Stroke TV Media.
Okay.
I want to tell you, it is refreshing to see you demonstrate servant leadership. You're being a servant. You're asking questions. And
Mhm.
I'm very involved with Jeffrey Hazel's C-Suite network.
Oh,
And
great.
he's a personal friend of mine. And he's helping my movement. And I want to, it's a blessing. And I want to, first of all, I'm doing this. I don't this may be the place, Keith, but I'm doing something called the Bridging the Gap.
Bridging the
Because
gap.
because I do see there's a gap between kicking truck drivers out the door
Hmm.
and leaving the doorstep and drawing them away. Good luck.
Yeah.
And they wave. So I think it's pretty me. I want to get involved in this somehow.
Well, Aaron, thanks so much. And Keith and I spoke before this and some of the things he's been working on as well with his experiences, which I was great to learn more about what he'd been through as well. So you're right. We're still in the discovery phase. We expect to do a few things wrong when we try, without a doubt. But we expect to learn. And one of the things that we're doing is we're forming two different types of advisory committees. So the first one is kind of like an advisory board where we just sit down and say, here's kind of where we are. Here's what our customers are telling us, the market's telling us, here's the timing of everything we're working on. It's kind of like a business discussion to make sure that we're leaning in the right direction. And Aaron, some of the things you mentioned, I'd love to have someone like you involved who's thinking about the concept of bridging the gap, because that's exactly what we're trying to do. And then the next one is an advisory board. It's more about product. So literally, we'd like to take that group and say, here's the tool that we just built. Here's the first version. It's kind of wonky. It's not really user-friendly yet, but we'd love your opinion. Literally, I don't like that button there or that color, or when I click here, I should see this, not that. That's the kind of feedback we're looking for, including telling us potentially the first three services we should be focused on. Because we've literally received such good feedback from our focus groups that we have no less than 100 things we could build, but we can only build a couple to begin with. And we're partnering with a technology company whose founder and CEO, they built apps, they have an experience, but their founder and CEO had a stroke and he has very severe aphasia. So I was drawn to them because they will know our audience, right? They understand who they're trying to help much better than we do. We're really pretty good at marketing and distribution and sales, but we've never built a software application before. And we may not understand how people who've had a stroke or their caregivers would use it the way they will. So we think it's a very powerful partnership if we can get it off the ground. And one of the things we're hoping to do is, for example, if you're dealing with Steven, who's a therapist, right? And Steven's a physical therapist assistant. He knows the human body better than anybody I've met. Let's say you describe what you're challenged with. Michael had, issues moving his arm. Steven could look at the app and he could drag and drop what I'll call a protocol, curated content into the app for you that would say, all right, Aaron, tomorrow, just watch this video and do these three things. And the next day I've got three other things I want you to do. Literally for the next 30 days, I've mapped out everything you need to do. And all you got to do is let me know you did it. And if you have any complaints or questions, just either call me or send me a text and we'll go from there. Because we're going to learn this after 5 days. What I suggested in days 5 through 10 may not make sense. So we'll make an adjustment. And I think that becomes powerful because every one of you on this call has a very different experience than the other people, right? You're all different and unique. So it can't be one size fits all, but there are some common things we can learn from and reproduce and make available to people that I just don't think are. One of the things that frustrates me, and it has to frustrate you, is I talk to therapists who have figured out some really cool things that work and no other therapists know about them.
Yeah.
Right? So none of you know about them.
Right.
So we want to make anything that happens that's good in this community available to everyone in the community. So we're probably going to have therapists create their own content and start to market themselves to you, if that makes sense. So they're going to create their own channels, and they may say, I've got a 5-segment video series on spasticity. And here's the 5 cool tricks I've learned to fix it. And you guys watch them and you rate them. And if they work, you give them a 5-star. And then you can set an appointment with them the next day.
Okay.
So
That's
that-
pretty cool.
Pete, this is so freaking exciting. Listen, Stroke TV Media, remember the name. Look me up. I
will.
think that you're onto something. I'm not getting a penny or nothing but promote your product,
sure.
but answers. Because I think everybody in this group, including myself, are all get to the curb and lift our doorstep, just sit there and plus figure this shit out by ourselves.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's
And
what
to
I've
have an
heard.
app like this would be life changing for most of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. If anybody has any questions, let me know. I've got one more thing I want to share to you that I was asked by a caregiver on a call. They said, how are we going to find out about this? How would we know about it? So, by the way, Aaron, I'm going to talk to you about, because Stroke TV is a great way to talk about that. But there's kind of 2 audiences that we think about every day, right? The first audience is the 800,000 people that have a stroke every year, and the percentage of those people that can use our help right away, right? Some people walk out of the hospital, never have an issue. Some people don't make it. Some people come home very different than when they got in there.
Mhm.
So we want to make sure that therapists know everything about this, so that when you're, as a stroke survivor, laying in the hospital and you're not together right there, right? You're not with it. You're just trying to figure out what the heck happened, right?
Right.
Your caregiver gets handed this app, and the therapist says, look, I want you to download this app, and I want you to answer the first 20 questions, and I'll do it with you. Because those questions will actually, we want to know what kind of stroke your loved one had, when they had it, what they were doing beforehand, and we'll learn everything we can. And that'll help us dictate what kind of content and care we send to you. It'll also dictate what type of therapist we want you to talk to and where they are. So literally from day one, that caregiver has a guide, right? You said a connection they've made. And it might even be a therapist that says, hey, look, Beverly, I know what you're going through. The other thing that we learned about that was really interesting was the caregivers we surveyed said, I would love to be a mentor. I've been through this. It's been 5 years. I would love to mentor someone who's no idea what's going to happen. So in that app, we connect them and say, here's a mentor whose husband had a stroke, just like your husband did. It's been 5 years, and she would like to help you understand what's going to happen in the next 35 days. Would you like to talk to her? Heck yeah.
Oh yeah.
Right. Right.
I
I'd
love
to
that
speak
idea.
with her.
Building a bridge.
Building a bridge. You got it. And bridging that gap, Aaron, right? The other thing I talked to a couple therapists. By the way, I had a conversation with a therapist today who's also a stroke survivor. You imagine that? He was an occupational neurotherapist who had a stroke. So his knowledge going into the stroke was pretty strong. Guess what he learned on his way out is everything you people have gone through from the other side,
Right.
right? He's now a survivor. It made him rethink everything he thought about as a therapist. He said, Pete, one of the scariest things that my survivors and caregivers go through is when they go home, they have this like 48-hour window where they have to get everything into their home that they need to handle them being home, or they have to go to assisted living. It's a scary, pressuring time. He goes, what if the app said, okay, I'm being discharged on Friday, press this button, Joan's going to get on with you, and she's going to have a therapist at your house at 4:00 who's going to do a walkthrough on a video camera. She's going to check a box with all the equipment you need. It's going to be ordered for you. It's going to show up the next day with someone to come install it and train you for it. Wouldn't that be just fantastic versus trying to figure that out on your own?
Yeah.
Right. So I know we won't have all of these things when we turn this thing on the first time.
Right.
But our goal is over the next year to start adding these features and learning from you guys and what's working. We'd like to have at least what I'll call the first version launched 1 year from now. So literally Q4 of 2023, we'll have a version. And if you guys would be generous to let me come back on a call and introduce you and walk you through it and get your feedback, I would love to do that.
Nice.
So
we'll just get it planned. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So what other initial reactions or thoughts do you guys have? Yeah, Lonnie.
Yes. First of all, if you call us warriors, SAO was really trying to introduce the term stroke warrior
Thank you for
versus
that.
survivors.
That's a great idea. I'll
'Cause
think about
that's
that.
what we are. We're warriors.
Warriors is a great way to do that. Fantastic.
Yeah, and then my other question, I think it's a great idea. What are you looking at as far as costs go? You know, we
Good
deal with
question.
a community that really doesn't have a lot of money or
Yep.
a lot of disposable income.
Yep. So it's a great question. I will tell you, the answer is we don't fully know yet because we're still doing some research. But here's how we've been told by other caregivers and warriors on how to look at this, by the way.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I can be taught. My wife's a teacher. She's still working on me. I'm a work in progress. By the way, our marriage right now is being evaluated in a pass fail. I have to submit a paper at the end of every year just to get a grade. So from a pricing standpoint, you know, we were frank. We can't do this for free, right? We have to build it out. Everyone has to have a little skin in the game. So we're thinking somewhere between $20 and $50 a month for the whole app. Okay.
Oh.
It's enough for you to go, well, that's coming off my credit card every month. I'm going to pay attention to that, right? Am I getting value? If yes, I'll continue to do it. There are some services that we would broker through the app. There would be a no additional charge. You just pay for the service, right? We don't charge an upcharge. So if you need a handicapped Uber, you would just pay the $39 for the Uber ride and you're good to go. We would have negotiated with Uber a revenue share on that to make sure that we've managed the API and do all that. That wouldn't be anything you would have to deal with. If you're going to talk to a therapist live, we probably do it in 15-minute increments, and it'd be something like $25 a conversation. And the reason we do that is some of you might find, you know, Steven is your favorite therapist and you're calling him 16 times a day. Steven can't do that, neither can you. So you've got to pay as you go, and then we manage Steven's calendar appropriately. And by the way, when we talk to caregivers and warriors, they said, if you could get someone to talk to when I need to talk to them and they have an answer for me, I'd pay for that.
Yeah.
100% I'd pay for that.
Yeah.
So it's a great question. We're probably going to test that a little bit because we have to pay the therapist that take that call, by the way. I've got to pay them. So that's something we're trying to figure out how to work it in. We've got some initial data. I think it's a very doable solution. And then this is not really a technology issue. We can build the app. It's really about how do we find the right partners to provide you services where you live and some of the services that are online. And as you know, some therapists can't treat people that are not in the same state with,
Right.
which is silly. But we're trying to resolve that as well. So brute force to begin with, we'll make sure we have therapists in every market we go live in. After that, we might have people who are not necessarily giving you a clinical therapist discussion or just maybe talking to you. And then they can be an advisor, and then we don't have to worry about those sort of things. So we're going to figure out the right ways to handle some of the logistics and regulations that go along with this.
Awesome. Sound good, Lonnie?
Yes, thank you very much.
Aaron, you had a question, buddy?
Well, I do, Keith. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak again, sir. But, but Pete, I think my Laura on that brought up a great point. All of us, I lost pretty much everything. I was self-employed for 12 years.
Yeah.
Lost Shopcast. Is there any way with the advent of telemedicine because of COVID,
Yeah.
you could research making this Medi-Cal or Medicare approved?
Yeah. We're definitely going to look into that. I think we're also going to look into ways where potentially some healthcare systems will cover the cost of this, or we can work with organizations like Believe, which Michael's a part of, to subsidize some of these things as well. So we definitely want to try to figure out how to make that happen. And we want people who can afford it to pay for it, and people who it's very tough for to have a way of handling it for them. So I don't know the answers to all those things, but the answer is, yeah, we're looking at that. Yeah. Keith, you had a follow-up to that
Well,
as well.
I was gonna hand it off to Michael. Go ahead, Michael, and then I can come back.
Well, something that I'll mention to you, Pete, one of that, they are now calling it a care partner. And everybody I talk to, all the therapists are going with care partner. for your own information.
So
And-
warriors and care partners now.
Yes.
Oh,
Okay.
God.
All right. I'm learning something new on every call.
Well, I learn something new every time I turn around.
Got it.
So
Got it.
it's kind of important. But I think you are right on with what you're doing. There is nothing more important than the care partner. And as everyone knows that has one, that we just can't say enough good things about them. And as Pete said, a lot of times they really continue to work diligently and they really don't say what's on their mind.
Right.
Or get
Right.
credit. You know, they don't get
Yes.
the credit that
Yes.
they deserve
Yes.
for, you know, for helping us, handling us. And boy, that story that you said, Pete, was a great story, you know, about the husband and wife in the beginning, because it's so true. I mean, the spouse ends up doing all this stuff and man, it's a tough gig. And you know, us guys, a lot of us guys, you know, we think we're all manly and all that. And I was going to tell you, Pete, you know, you said something earlier about, you know, not having a problem, not going anywhere or something like that. And anyway, it made me think, you know, what if something happened to you?
Yeah.
You know, seriously, you know, what if something happened, you know?
Yeah.
And so how are you going to adjust to that? And so that's, you know, putting yourself kind of in our shoes, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
losing your job, your business, your friends, your family, all the bullshit that goes on. Well, so anyway,
You know, there was another interesting thing that one of the stroke warriors pointed out to me that was something I had to learn. And Keith and I talked about this. I've spent 15 years in the fitness industry. So I'm a trainer and I built a company that did this. And normally the people I would train over a 10, 20, 30, 40 year period would kind of get out of shape. So they don't really remember what it was like to be in shape and run and not have back pain and feel good. They couldn't remember that. But a lot of stroke warriors could have been running, walking, hiking, riding a horse, kayaking. They could have been doing all sorts of things the day before their stroke.
yeah,
Right. And then all of a sudden a switch flips and you're not that person anymore. And that hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, you know, as a therapist, if you're excited because they now picked up a pen, you're like, screw that, dude. I was hiking yesterday. Moving a pen isn't exciting for me. What are you talking about? It's really important for people to understand the frame of mind that you're coming from and the concept of 10,000 hours and what you have to go through to learn the basic thing. I don't think people appreciate at all what you're going. I just don't think they do.
Well, and the emotion that comes, you know, I think about the first 5 years after my stroke. Hell, I would cry at the drop of a hat.
Yeah.
And, you know, I still do at times when I'm telling my story, it really brings up those emotions. And I'm sure most of you can relate to that. But at the same time, Pete, I do want to say this, you know, everybody goes through some sort of crap in their life. You know, it doesn't matter if it's stroke related or heart, it could be whatever.
Yep.
We have to decide, we have to make that decision that we're going to move on and we're going to keep going and we're going to get,
You're right.
That's right. We're going to have the belief, we're going to have the attitude, we're going to, you know, get this thing put back together. And this is a perfect format for that. That's what we are doing here. And having somebody like Pete come on and talk to us is absolutely enormous. So anyway, I just throw that out.
Well, I appreciate it. It's funny. After we got off all the focus group calls, these two women, Jenny and Carly, who are on our team, who I want you guys to meet at some point, you know, they've been in this industry for a while. I don't know that they've approached, kind of as Aaron was saying, their job in a discovery mode. Like, let's go learn. Let's just go listen and learn, because maybe we don't do that enough. And we got off a call. And by the way, just so you guys know, I have yet to run a financial model on this yet. And I'm a spreadsheet guy. Like, I love spreadsheets, because the problem is you can make it look any way you want it. Like, I can make this look like a gazillion-dollar business. I didn't want to do that. And Jenny and Carly said to me after our last call, they said, Pete, the reason we love what we're doing here this is just the right thing to do.
Yeah.
How often can you say that? They're like, this is the right thing to do.
Love it.
So I think there are conversations with people like all of you on this call. I'm inspired every day because Keith, your story, right? You were in a pretty dark place.
Mhm.
And what got you out of the place is there are other people in the same place. How do we help each other?
Right.
And the fact that all of you are, by the way, it's funny you mentioned warriors, Lenny, because I started a program called Fit Warriors to help people who were really struggling and forgotten. The whole health system had forgotten that they can't come back. And we help people who weighed 400 pounds and never thought they'd see a healthy day in their life get back. And this Fit Warrior program was what it was. So that's going to stick in my head now that you mentioned warriors. I love it.
Thank you.
So good.
And that's really what we are. And I think that gives us strength when we
Mhm.
look at ourselves that way.
Yeah.
I know for me, it does. You know,
Yeah.
and I get the context of a warrior. I work harder.
So by a show of hands, is everybody on this call a warrior? They've had a stroke? Wow. That's amazing to me.
Hey, Jim, get your hand up.
I can't move my
Pete.
hand to still photo.
I was kidding you.
Anyway, Pete, I'll send you a Stroke Warrior t-shirt and a Stroke Warrior hat.
Oh,
And
that'd be
which
great.
I have to admit, I stole it from Lane about, I guess it's been almost 2 years ago. But
It has
I
been.
had, for all of Believe's Stroke Warriors, I give them a Stroke Warrior t-shirt and hat. So I'll send
That's
you
awesome.
one so that you'll know what we go by.
By the way, Keith,
That's
in
nice.
my upper right corner of my screen, it says NAOROG. Who is that?
That's Roger.
Roger. So Roger, did you have glasses on at the beginning of the call?
Yes.
So does anybody here, speaking of football, know who Joe Gibbs is?
Yes.
The former football
Yeah.
coach of the Washington Redskins?
Yep.
Roger, oh my gosh, you're Joe Gibbs.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
he does kind of.
I'm going to call you coach the rest of the night. You're looking at me. I'm like, geez, what play do we run? I was like ready to go. Like literally, give me the ball.
When I hear Joe Gibbs, I think of Joe Gibbs racing in NASCAR.
And he ran a NASCAR team. He
Yeah.
had a NASCAR team. You're exactly
Has
right.
a NASCAR team.
Yeah. Joe Gibbs Racing, Joe Gibbs. I mean, you're Joe Gibbs, Roger.
But
Just
I'm
Google him when you're done. You're going to freak out. You're going to like, he's my doppelganger.
Can I mention one thing about what you were saying earlier?
Sure.
So when you were saying like when people are going to pick up a pencil, I was like, that's crap. I was running a marathon last week where I was and they all of a sudden get thrown in this puddle of
Yes.
all of a sudden their body don't work. What people don't understand from my point of view, I was a very fitness individual before my cancer. I had stage 4 cancer, a septic kidney infection, and spinal meningitis all at the same time. I rebuilt myself by myself for myself because I realized where the help really was. It was in your own who you are as an individual and how hard you're willing to work and push
Yes.
yourself. It matters a stroke or cancer, a heart attack. It comes down to who you are as an individual, how far you're going to push yourself.
But
The
that-
main-
is that Joe
Amen.
Gibbs or not?
Mhm.
Amen to that.
Yes.
So Steve, you
people
guys can tell why Steven is now my personal physical therapist because by the way, just so full disclosure, I walked into Steven's office about 2 weeks ago with 5 years of chronic back pain.
Oh,
And he said, go walk down the hall and come back. In 30 seconds, he goes, I know what's wrong. Now, to his credit, he spent another 30 minutes doing a detailed evaluation, but his initial assessment was accurate. And Steven, I haven't even told you yet this today, but I went back to the guy that's been doing the acoustic sonic therapy on my back. We couldn't
Mhm.
find a single trigger point anywhere in my lower back or my glutes. There was no inflammation.
It's because
Wow.
you're kinetically connected together that drives your train.
Yeah.
That's what makes people like think about it. You're a pretty healthy guy when I met you.
Yeah.
I mean, you're a little older, but you're pretty healthy.
Ouch. Ow! Shots fired. Shots fired.
What I'm saying
We tease each other. It's good.
the thing about most people, they don't know how their body works to ever begin with. So that when they get thrown in the mud and you got all this heavy weight on your shoulders, and you never understood your body to start with, it's like you've always drove a car that you never even knew how to put gas in. Now all of a sudden it breaks down and you're the one that's got to fix it. And you got all this pressure because you got to be somewhere at one time and you have no idea what even tool to take to change the tire. Like people don't even realize their brain runs their body, but they don't invest in their body until it has a problem. And now they're working uphill plus the other baggage they got to take with them.
Yeah. And all you guys wake up one morning with that times 10, right? It becomes very challenging.
Let me just say one thing to Stephen, excuse me. And, a lot of us on this call and just stroke warriors in common, you were talking about the 800,000 that have them, and I'm looking for you. There you are, Pete. All these people that have them, and some want to get better, some give up, some die. I mean, I know all that, but gosh darn it, if I didn't lose my train of thought. We lose our train of thought all the time.
Yeah, we do.
So by the way, Keith, it's interesting. There's 800,000 a year, but there's 4 or 5 million people who are still in the system who have been shoved off to the side and forgotten about.
Right.
That's the other audience we need to reach. And that's where kind of our sales and marketing engine is really important.
Right.
They're not in current contact with the therapist.
And the willingness to get better because they've been let down by other people that they depended on.
Yeah, but Steve, my point is, Stephen, I'm sorry, that we all had different strokes. They came from different reasons. Mine was a disease that gave me the stroke that no one knew about until boom, it hit. And so many of us, you look at this group in here, there aren't very many of us who are what you would call the common stroke survivor out there that got a stroke because of whatever. I'm not kidding you. It's so different and unique. And so that's one thing that I want to just make.
Well, and I want to be conscious of everybody's time. I'm very grateful that you allowed me to get on the program with Keith and learn from all of you and kind of share what we're thinking. I definitely would love more feedback. I'm going to go talk to my care partners and warriors more and make sure that we got that taken care of. But if you'll allow me, I'll come back at some point and share our progress and let you know how we're doing and get your feedback. Yes, Kathleen.
Oh, I was going to say, because I talked to Lene, my husband is a nurse, and we went to the stroke conference in Bend.
Oh.
And so I talked to Lene, and bless her heart, she got me to this group because I've been a stroke warrior for 15 years, and I had 6 weeks of speech therapy, and then I was out on my own. And I was younger then, but still, all my friends were still working, and it's just you're kind of left in the dark.
Well, Kathleen, I'll tell you, whoever your speech therapist was, and whatever work you did after that, you speak the language better than I do. So God bless you. That's fantastic.
Well, and Kathleen, can I make a comment real quick here? So my stroke was 12 years ago. I just had my stroke anniversary, and same thing. They sent me to no one was going to send me, but my wife made sure of it, and so I went to this therapist for a few weeks, and I wasn't getting anything out of it, and I was paying for the whole thing myself too. So
right.
Anyway, I can relate, and I think I sent you an email. We're going to talk tomorrow, but anyway,
yes.
I feel your pain.
Yeah.
And Beverly, you had something to say too, right?
Go ahead, Keith. Finish your thought.
I was just going to say, the game ain't over, and we're going to continue to keep striving, and we're going to continue to keep growing, and you're doing really great. So
thank you, everybody here too. That's wonderful, and I want to get in this and help other people also.
Awesome.
That's great, Kathleen. That's
where
great
it's
to hear.
at. Bev, go ahead.
My first stroke was 1999, and of course nobody knew anything about anything.
Right.
And I wasn't diagnosed until 2004 with moya, which is a rare brain disease. And anyway, making a long story short, I had to do my own therapy. So I went to England to do PhD research. I arrived in a wheelchair in England, and then began to clean houses for a living in order to do the therapy that I needed to be able
Sure.
to move around. And
Wow.
I did 9 houses plus the village hall every week. Plus I went to school full time and was working on my dissertation, doing independent PhD research. So yeah, you can do it. It's hard, but I felt like I was all alone and that nobody cared. And all the doctors kept saying to me was, you need to quit. You need to not do anything. You need to give up working. You need, again, I was not about to do that because that would have been worse for me than anything. And I continued. I ended up 31 years, finally retired after 31 years in the ministry. So
Wow.
don't ever
Great.
give up.
So
Yeah.
Lene, if this was a comedy show, you know what I'd be saying right now? Damn, that's a warrior right there. Love
Jim,
you, Bev,
okay,
already.
real quick, because we're running out of time. I'm gonna get Jim and then Michael and Bev. I just want you to say, you know, attitude is a huge, huge part of this. And then I'm gonna keep going. So Jim, go ahead.
Pete, I had a question for you about the app.
Yeah.
Are you considering including something that would address financial uncertainty for people?
Absolutely.
I know with my care partner, my beloved spouse, I was a senior executive at a credit union making 6 figures, and they kind of decided that I was not the same person that they had hired. So I had to leave that job. And now I'm in a position where disability is the only thing that keeps us paying the bills. And one of the things that we need to be able to do is find trusted financial advisors who can help us where we're at, understand if we've got multiple retirement accounts, how can we roll them together? What can we do? I'm 61 years old. I'm not that far away from a real retirement, but how are we going to maintain our lives after long-term disability goes away? I would think that something that would help people with the question of financial uncertainty would be a significant way to minimize stress and anxiety.
You know what? So Jim, it's actually one of the key pieces of feedback we received in our surveys was answering the financial questions of how do I handle all of this?
Yeah.
It's a great thing for you to raise your hand on. And the answer is yes. We're going to need some help trying to figure out how to do that, right? We want people who have been through this to understand exactly what we're talking about. So it's not traditional financial planning. It's
Right.
as you described, it's a whole new world. So I may come back to you on more information there, but the answer is absolutely yes.
Well,
Yeah.
please feel free to do that. I've got my story, like you've already said, is probably unique to other individuals. But the one thing that I know for certain is if there's a financial uncertainty, there is anxiety and stress, and that's not good for us. We don't need to be dealing with that in addition to all the work we need to put in physically to get better.
So much so. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Michael.
Well, I didn't want to forget the ladies. You know, I was with a good friend this weekend, and she is a stroke warrior. And I can't say enough how her husband took care of everything. I mean, he took care of the cooking, the laundry, he remodeled a whole house while she had the stroke. So I just wanted everybody to know there are men out there that are care partners as well.
Wonderful.
Absolutely.
By the way, one last thing before we go. Michael has started, and I don't think it's completely worked out yet, but we want to help him get the word out. He's working on a way for people to rate different facilities, outpatient facilities, so that you know the right one to go to. So that's another peer service we'd like to offer in the platform. So a couple of you have mentioned, like you had a difficult experience, you kind of got shoved to the side. we want those ratings to get into the system so people know what they're getting into before they choose a facility or a particular therapist. So that's something else we're looking at as a service. Keith, thanks so
Awesome.
much. I want to make sure I'm under the wire here.
Thank you, buddy. I got to mention a couple of things, then and then we'll go on. We're having first of all, Pete, thank you so much. That was incredible. I think you're a great speaker. I think you handle it very well. You did a great job, and we really appreciate having you.
Thank you.
And we will have you back if you'll come back. We'd love.
I'd love to. Would love to.
Thank you.
So we're doing a walk and wheelathon on October 22nd. If you guys go to our website, strokeawarenessoregon.org, and look at that. One thing I want to make sure you guys know, you don't have to have a team. Michael Irwin, you could sign up. So I want everybody to look at that if they would, and help us raise a few bucks to keep Stroke Awareness Oregon going, because we're doing a ton of good things in the community. So I wanted to mention that. Any stroke anniversaries this month other than mine? Anybody?
Adam.
Hey, way to go, buddy.
I'm on a
Hang in
Zoom
there,
call.
bud.
It'll end in about a minute. So if you'll just hold, I'll
Diane, you as
get
well?
to you. How's that?
Yeah, it was in the beginning of September.
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
Don't have the exact date.
Yeah.
Cool.
Mine is 10 days from now. 10 days
Oh.
from today.
Alicia.
Oh, wow.
My 3
Oh, nice.
years. 3
Right,
years.
it'll be
Mine
my-
was 3 years too.
God, you guys look
Wow.
great. You look great. Adam, if I just had a fifth of your hair, I'd be happy. Good gracious, buddy. Look, he's got Novak Djokovic there.
Yeah. Oh
Luckily,
my God.
I didn't lose that. in
Does
this trip.
everyone want to see Joe Gibbs?
Yes, please do. Tell me, is that not
Oh my
Roger?
gosh,
Yeah,
yeah.
there he is.
I mean, am I right?
That's like him.
He does.
That's great.
That's
What
with
do
the
you think,
glasses on,
Roger?
especially. That's just great, Roger.
Yeah, I thought it was funny.
All right, everybody.
Okay,
Thank you
guys,
so much for the time.
Last
Thank you, Peter.
next meeting.
Thank you.
The the 11th of October. So looking forward to having you guys. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you
Appreciate
very
all of
much.
So much.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Buddy.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.